hey, next gen leaders, I'm so excited we get into session 4, where we're going to talk about discipleship, which is ultimately, it's the goal of all of our next gen programs. And we want to see this next generation in disciple relationships. We want to see them being discipled and being disciples ultimately of Jesus. Meaning we want to see them live lives absolutely, positively, absolutely for Jesus. Absolutely with Jesus, man. We want to see them do what Jesus has commanded them. We want to see them fulfill the callings on their lives, and that happens through discipleship. And so today in this session, what I want to do is I want to kind of walk through the initial relationship. Man, a kid, a youth student walks in the door. How do we begin to build a relationship all the way through? How do we eventually get them to the point where they are then making disciples on their own? Because really the goal is to get them in the door, get them in a relationship, and then ultimately at the end, then send them out. Really, it is reach, revive, and then resend. Reach, get them into a loving relationship with Jesus. Revive, help them learn how to live. Help them learn how to follow Jesus, and then resend. Man, now it's your job to go out and build relationships and begin to disciple people in and of yourself. The Great Commission really is a multiplication movement, not an addition. And so really, when we begin to get into discipleship relationships, the goal isn't just for them to live like Jesus, but really is for them to learn how to teach others to love like Jesus. In the process, they will love like Jesus on their own. And so today, what I want to do is I kind of just want to start with what is the baseline? How do we begin relationship to how do we send them to make relationships? And so we're going to kind of walk through today, starting with, okay, what happens when somebody new walks in the door? And the first thing I would say, so when a kid or a youth student walks in the door, your first conversation should look this simple. Hey, what's your name? Let's say it's Billy Bob, right? Well, hey, do you like air hockey? Man, let's go play air hockey. And really the goal of the first conversation that I have with any student or kid is to find something that they are so passionate about, that they are so engrossed in, that they literally cannot stop talking about it. And oftentimes, the reality is, so my first goal when I kind of meet them, get their name and everything, is to get them doing an activity with me. Because if I just sit there with them, and I sit oftentimes in the corner or on the side of the room, and I just ask them questions, what I will get is one-word responses. I'll be like, well, do you enjoy school? Like, how's school? And they're like, yes, or it's good, or yeah, I don't really like it. And then I find myself, I keep having to pry information out of them. And that's just not productive from our end. We could be a lot more productive. And what I find is if I get them doing an activity, if I get them playing Pop-A-Shot, if I get them playing air hockey, playing a board game, playing cards, doing something with me, man, even I have kids that'll come early. And so I can even just get them setting up chairs with me. If I can get them doing something with me, they'll begin to open up because the walls begin to get torn down through the activity we're doing. And I tend to find that this is true both of boys and of girls, and both of kids and of youth students, that if I can get them doing an activity, doing something with me, that the responses begin to become larger. And really the goal of that first conversation, what I want to find the first week, the first day that they come, is what is one thing that they are so passionate about, that they are so obsessed with, that I can continue to bring up this topic and it can be a launching point into other conversations. So for a lot of our kids and youth students, man, it'll be like video games. Or for some of them, it might be a sport, or it might be something else. And here's the reality is, for a lot of us, like, there's times, even for me, where I will talk to a student, while I will talk to a kid, and they will mention something, and they'll start talking about it, and I have no clue what they're talking about. And so it might feel as if there really is no relationship to be built because we have nothing in common. What they are passionate about is either A, something I'm not really even interested in, or B, know nothing about. And here's my encouragement to you: even if you did, let them teach you. And here's why I say that, because ultimately, you are going to end up teaching them. Like, at the end of the day, you're going to end up teaching them in small groups. You're going to end up teaching them in discipleship relationships. You're going to end up preaching sometimes and doing some stuff like that. And so the reality is that we're going to spend our time teaching. And so actually providing them an opportunity to teach you something begins to build a very, very special relationship, to where they feel as if they are teaching you something, and then you are also teaching them something. And by setting the example of how you want them to interact with us when we are teaching, what you will find is you tend to get better responses when you are teaching, because you set the example. So for our kids, man, we would love if they would sit, they would listen well, they'd ask good questions. That's what we'd like to see. So when we are interacting with them, especially for the first time, we're trying to find that thing that they're super passionate about. And when we hit it, man, and they start just going and they're spewing off, here's my encouragement: listen well and ask good questions. Now here's the reality: for some of us, then you'll leave and you still won't know anything about whatever it was that they were talking about. But the reality is that what it does is it gives you something. Man, if it's Minecraft, or if it's a video game, or if it's a sport, I can research it. I can Google it during the week. I can find a couple things. And my encouragement would be, before you see them the second, the third, the fourth time, come with a couple questions. Because what you're going to be modeling is actually what discipleship should hopefully look like. Because the hope of a discipleship relationship is to come to a point where they're doing the things they're supposed to be doing throughout the week. They're reading the Bible, they're praying, and things like that. And they come to the point in that where they have questions. And the hope is that they come to you with the questions. And so if we can model what it's like to be a disciple to them over a topic that they enjoy, over a topic where they might be the expert in, how much easier is it to then explain, to express, and for them to have seen and then now do the same thing back to us with the Bible and with Jesus. And so really, the beginning of a discipleship relationship is actually becoming a disciple yourself. It really is. Like, it's consistently coming. Hey, like, so we talked about Minecraft last week. I was looking at it. What are these things called mobs? What is this aspect of this game? What do you do? Do you play this version of the game? Do you play that version of the game? And it's asking questions and things like that. And what this does is it really models to them super simply what it is like to be discipled. So then when it gets to a point with them, this is a really disarming thing for them. And this is how you build really good relationships. And there's also the common complaint from kids and teens especially is that they don't feel like you understand them. And so when you actually take the time to sit and learn from them, even if it's something like, I'm not going to sit here and lie to you and say that everything they're going to teach you is going to just be like the most interesting thing. Like, no, it might not be interesting to you. But when you put in the time during the week to research, come up with a couple questions, and just let this kid teach you, really let them do a lot of the talking, it creates a relationship. And what I find, so the first kind of layer to this is, man, let them teach you about a topic, and you and whatever programs they have. We always have our Jesus story, or we have a sermon or something. So they're going to be getting some Jesus. But the discipleship doesn't really happen until we get deeper into small groups and one-on-one relationships and things like that. So the first kind of layer, man, let them teach you. And there's going to come a point, I guarantee it, where you'll be having a conversation And the second kind of layer, so the first layer, man, it's pretty outer. It's pretty surface level, where you're talking about something they enjoy, something they love. But there's eventually going to come a point where the conversation is going to go to what I would call the second level, and that is limitations. Limitations. There's going to come a point where they talk about a limitation. And this is a super simple method. It's called the onion method. Okay? And what this is it basically looks at conversations and relationship building, and it breaks it down into layers, like an onion. But the reality is, I think oftentimes, as leaders, myself included, I get impatient. So I want to like dig in. I want to make sure we get to the second, the third, the fourth layer, instead of letting them get to the layer. And so really the goal of the relationship, the goal of the onion method, is to actually let the person that you are trying to get deep with, the person you're trying to build a relationship with, steer the conversation and where you're going. And so, man, for some of them, it'll be like the first day, like later that day, you'll get to the second or third layer. For some of them, I mean, it's been years. And we're just finally getting to that second level. So first level, baseline, find something they can teach you, start modeling what discipleship looks like. Second level, they're going to talk about limitations. Now, this can look a lot of different ways. It can look like family. It can look like mental illness, mental problems, different perspective. It can look like financials. It can look like all kinds of different things. It can look like smarts. It can look like resources. It can look like food. And here's the key. When they begin to talk about limitations, here's the deal. When they begin to talk about limitations, here's the deal. The goal isn't in that moment to sit there and then give them the 30-point process of what does the Bible say about this? What should you do about this? But super simple, in that moment, here's your job. And listen, ask good questions, just like you had before. Get deeper, get to the root of the issue, and then ask to pray about it. Almost no student or kid is going to go, no, I don't want to pray about it. No, pray about it. And then walk with them week after week after week after week about the issue. Follow up with it. Hey, last week we talked about how, you're just feeling depressed. Man, you're just feeling sad. You're having some of those issues. Man, I want to know how that's going. And with the follow up of that after the prayer, either, hey, man, sometimes it'll just get better. Sometimes God really is working with them and they get better. Or sometimes it'll open up even other opportunities. They're like, man, it was just still a really rough week. Man, do you have any advice? And the third space is where they invite you to speak into their life. First layer, man, surface level, man, let them teach you. Second layer, man, limitations, let's pray with them. Let's follow up. Let's continue to get back to this point. This gives you a continual point that you can come back to every single time. You're at the second layer. You can keep coming back to that. Third one, they're going to invite you to speak into their life. Man, what do you think? That's a common way they'll bring it up. Man, I'm going through this. What do you think? Man, here's the situation. What do you think? Or sometimes they'll be like, hey, what does the Bible say about this? Man, I just need some advice. In those moments when they're inviting you to speak into your life, man, that is where true discipleship gets to start, because that's what it was. Now it's, hey, okay, let's talk about this. Let's look into this. And let's be honest, there's going to be times when we're not going to have the answer. We're not going to get the whole story. We won't have the answer. We'll ask us questions and be like, I don't necessarily know I got the answer to that. And that's okay, because in a discipleship relationship, what that says is I might not have the answer, but let's find the answer. Man, I'll walk with you through this. And that's what Jesus and his disciples did. Once they got to that point where Jesus had the ability to speak into their life, and they just did life together. So my encouragement to you, man, from first step to last step, here's what it looks like. Man, let them teach you something, whatever it is: basketball, football, video games, crafts, sewing. I don't know what it is. Let them teach you. It just gives you such an ability to model what discipleship looks like, and such an ability to build relationship with them. And it really takes away the common complaint of them, which is, man, they just don't understand me. Then, man, they're going to invite you into their limitations. And it's really important when we get to that step that we don't pretend that we just don't have any limitations. Now, here's what they don't want to necessarily hear. Man, I understand that. I've been through that. No. They don't need you to relate to their problem. Every problem's different. But it's okay to admit, man, yeah, I have limitations too. Because otherwise, man, maybe faith isn't for them. Because if everybody's in faith is perfect and I'm not, then maybe faith isn't for me. It's important to make sure that they understand the discipleship is actually a direction, not a destination. That we're running towards Jesus, but it's not that we had to get there. But the reality is that we're never going to be Jesus, but we're becoming more like him each day. It's a direction. So once you've got to that limitations, man, then eventually they're going to invite you to speak into their life. They're going to ask your opinion. They're going to ask your advice. And that gives you the point. And here's the thing. Oftentimes when that happens, can I be really honest with you? Sometimes they're still not going to follow it. But your job as a disciple maker, your job as a leader is not to make the kid follow your advice. And your job when they don't isn't to tell them, I told you so. But it is to love them through that. And oftentimes what I find is once you get in that discipleship relationship, you give them advice, even if they go against it, and then bad things happen, when they come back to you, and you don't go, I told you so. You go, man, I love you. What can we do to help? Man, what's next? And you focus on the future. Well, that oftentimes will lead to is an actual relationship where your word then means something. Hey, they know you were right. It wasn't that they didn't. And they see the consequence. They know. Like they know what the Bible said was correct. But Jesus, just like us, doesn't want to dwell on the past, man. He wants to forgive it and he wants to move forward. And so for us, man, when they come back to us after they failed, after they screwed up, the goal isn't to sit there, man, I told you so, why didn't you listen to me? Or get frustrated by that. As I know, I'm guilty of it too. But really is, man, let's move forward. What can we do? How can I help? And out of that relationship, what begins to happen is there's going to come a point where they're solid in their faith. Man, where almost every single question they come to you with is a question where you're like, man, I don't even know that answer. Let's find it together. And that friendship, that relationship really turns from a, mentor and mentee to really a beautiful vision of what the church was supposed to be, where you have multiple followers of Christ being able to spur one another closer to him. Really, this just absolutely paints a beautiful picture of what discipleship can look like. That these kids are able to actually lead their discipleship from the initial surface level all the way down to letting you speak into their lives. That really their faith journey actually becomes their own, and I believe that's where it's going to be the strongest. That is what we want to do here. I want to create disciples, not just Christians, not just people that believe in Christ, but people that actually follow him, where their faith is there. So we have 2 more sessions. We have our next session was going to be about all kinds of resources that I can give to you. And so go ahead and grab some coffee. Definitely grab a notepad for this next session, and we'll see you there.